I'm hoping now everyone can see my screen because it's reflecting as showing on my side. Can I have an indication on the side if everyone can see the screen?
I can see your screen.
Thanks for
we
that.
can see it.
Thank you very much for
I
the
can see your
feedback.
screen.
Lovely stuff.
Yes, thank you. Can see the screen.
Yes, I'm seeing the screen too.
Much appreciated.
I'm seeing the screen too.
My
Yes, I'm
name
seeing the
is
screen.
Tpec, and I'm going to be the facilitator today. However, I am going to be facilitating with a co-facilitator, and her name is Ms. Sifan. If you don't mind, can you just show your face quickly and just for the meetings?
Ms. Matapelo.
Hello?
Oh, sorry to disturb. May I please kindly request everybody to mute themselves because we are hearing a lot of noise this side.
Okay, so what will happen is the co-facilitator from time to time will mute everybody's microphone so that we don't hear any background noise. So I'm going, like I was saying, I'm going to be facilitating with my colleague Ukwin Sifala, and I'm going to assume that she can't show her face because I'm currently on present mode. And part of the team member that we have with us today is Upindile Mavundla, and what she will be doing is she will play the admin role, and she will be facilitating the WhatsApp link, and she will be sharing any other link that's required for this particular session. So if you do have any question or feedback that you want to share with us, it's advisable that instead of speaking in your microphone, you'd rather just type your questions or your comments in the WhatsApp chat, and then we'll revert to you here in the platform. Right, and I think we've set some of the ground rules. It's important that we please make sure that our videos are switched off at all times, and that your microphone is switched off as well. Right, so today's session is going to focus on design lessons with apps and tools. If you remember last week, we spent a bit of time doing a full-on orientation of using Microsoft Teams as your classroom, but we didn't delve into how to use application within the platform. So for today's session, I would like us to envision Microsoft Teams as our classroom, and that within the classroom, we will need different resources for teaching and learning to happen. And in this case, what we're going to be using as resources are the different apps and tools. But before we dive into the apps and tools, I'd like to mention prior that the session will be split into two segments. The first part of the presentation will be theory and some background as to why we actually doing this, why we even thinking about including apps and tools in learning, why we even thinking of using possibly Microsoft Teams as a classroom. Right, so let's delve right into it. Today's outcomes. What are we looking at achieving today? The outcomes are as listed below or on the screen currently. We're going to talk in some form of detail about two learning modules, in particular UDL and the Tpec models. We'll also look at the framework for digital learning. And then at the very end of the session, we're going to play around with some tools that you can possibly include in your classroom. And our classroom, obviously, in this case, will be Microsoft Teams. So what are we talking about when we talk about the Tpec model? So what the Tpec model seeks to do is it seeks to look for strategies in which we can use. Quinn, can I request that you mute again?
Kindly unmute yourself, Matapelo.
Thank you very much, Quinn. So what the Tpec looks at seeks to do is to give ideas, teachers general ideas on how teaching can happen, effective teaching can happen, with consideration to how we teach, with the content knowledge. And I think with regards to the content knowledge, it's generally what most teachers have. And then also include some 21st century skills that are required. And the ideal situation is to have a teacher that has a relatively good balance of all the three arms that are required for effective teaching and learning. So what happens is currently most of our teachers have got some or good content knowledge, but don't necessarily have the pedagogy of teaching the content. And where there is the pedagogy, there may not be the skills for using 21st century skills. Or where there is that some form of using digital technology or the 21st century technologies, then there's some form of lack of content. And I think this applies mostly to the younger generation of teachers, where they're quite savvy with using technology, but because they don't have much experience, then the content that they meant to be sharing is sort of limited. So what we look, and in most cases, what we do find is that we find teachers that have got some form of pedagogical skills. They also have some form of content knowledge, but these two alone can never really fit the category of having a good teaching and learning that's happening. Alternatively, it flips more to the right-hand side, where there's pedagogical skills, and then there's the 21st century technology skills, but then there's lack of content. So if you know how to teach something and you've got some technological knowledge, it does not necessarily mean you are able to bring across the content. So in essence, what we've got the master of pedagogy, we've got the master of content, and we've got masters of technology or the use of technology, but we hardly find teachers that reach that sweet spot that we're talking about in the center. And really, so one of the reasons that we actually is to speak about the heart of teaching and learning, and find possibly together different ways in which we can grow together such that we reach that spot we were talking about. That Tpec that I was sharing earlier, or the slide that was before this current slide, which is the DBE framework. The DBE framework includes the Tpec. So the framework itself has been informed by the Tpec and a whole lot of other methodologies that are included within the framework. But I think what sits at the heart of the DBE framework that we're supposed to be implementing in schools for teaching and learning is the fact that teachers have got to have some level of the three levels or the three pieces in order to form that triangle that's in the center. And what the framework really seeks to do is, if you look on the left-hand side, let me get a pen quickly so that I highlight the bits that I'm talking about. If you're looking right here on level 1, it says teaching, and when you go up, it says learning, and then there's digital teaching, and then there's digital learning. So what happens here is, within the framework, we are looking at the very first block here. Oh, sorry for making that mess. The very first block here will inform you that in most instances, what we've got teachers who share the content knowledge, like I was saying earlier, but and they share the content knowledge for learners to remember and understand. And teaching and learning happens just like that. So there's never really a reach where teachers are looking at teaching such that learners remember and they understand the content. But the framework speaks about the first level in all the different levels, so level 1 to 4. It speaks about that learners firstly at the very first part, for instance, in level 1 where it's teaching, the mere basic is remembering and understanding. But as a teacher, you should be moving towards the right hand, the right hand side direction, which speaks to, yes, our learners need to remember what they're learning. They also need to understand, but most importantly, they need to learn how to apply their learning. And I think any fulfilling learning or any fulfilling teaching is where a learner is able to apply whatever it is that they're learning. But when you move further towards the right, you will realize that the learning doesn't end where there's application. There needs to be a point in a learner's life where they're now analyzing and evaluating whatever it is that they have learned. So over and above remembering, understanding, and applying the knowledge, we now need to be moving towards a space where learners are analyzing and evaluating their learnings. And eventually what you're looking at is learners who are creative in their learning and who are innovative. Because I think at the end of the day, any effective teaching and learning also speak to being innovative and growing in the space where you are now able to create your own content. The very first level, like I said, speaks to teaching, and it was informed by Bloom's order of thinking. So if you know the Bloom's order of thinking, it's that triangle that speaks exactly what I was just talking about, where the first phase simply focuses on remembering and understanding, but the push and the direction, where the peak of the triangle, or at the heart and the peak of the learning, is the issue around being creative and making sure that learners are able to engage in complex thinking and are able to create something from that. A similar pattern is followed under learning. So it's vice versa. So under teaching level 1, it's where the teacher, when the teacher prepares a lesson, it's such that it pushes learners towards that directive to the right. And on the receiving end is the learners. Obviously, the learners have also got to follow a very similar pattern for learning. So all the way. And the ideal situation is that the teaching happens in that direction, the learning happens in that direction, and that there's some form of digital inclusion within the teaching and within both the teaching and the learning. And eventually what we're looking at is a space that's currently indicated there at the top as D, where learners are now able to use digital technologies for collaboration. The lesson is not regulated, but teachers are more of facilitators, and they facilitate the learning and are able to support the learners. But the learners eventually become independent learners and only come to teachers for advice and sort of direction. So we're going to move on to the next slide. Ooh, now my slides, it seems my slides are frozen. Interesting. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing because for some reason my slides have frozen. So I'm going to stop sharing and reshare again. Right. And let's hope things will be different now. Right. And the last part or the last model that we're going to be talking about or sharing about, and UDL simply means Universal Design Learning. And what UDL simply looks at achieving is firstly, as teachers, to understand that the learners don't have one way of learning or one way in which learners learn. It sort of motivates teachers to consider different learning styles for when creating lessons. So we all know that, in fact, it's been said that everyone has got their own way of learning, and learning styles are, there's a variety of learning styles such that they are considered to be as different as each person's fingerprint. So they are so vast, and as teachers, when you create your lessons, you need to be considerate and consider the different learning styles. This includes the WAT, or the recognition network, which speaks to the what. So when we speak to the what, we're speaking to the content that you're sharing, right? And then there's the how part of it that speaks to the pedagogy in most instances on how you share this lesson. When you do create the content or the lessons, it's very important that you consider different ways in which you share this content. And once you think of different ways in which you share this content, you also try to trigger the why, which is what drives the learners to actually respond to the content that you're sharing. So in a practical space, what you're looking at a diverse way of sharing content. So it could be the same content, but using words, for instance, and using videos and using diagrams, so that all learners are covered within the content and how you're sharing the content. And the how is when you've shared the lesson, the learners then need to respond to this learning. And as they respond to this learning, you need to allow different ways in which learners respond to this learning. Remembering that learners come to your class with a particular prior knowledge or some form of background, and how they respond to this knowledge that you share will, in most cases, be informed by the background or the prior knowledge that they have, be it their strengths, their skills, whatever it is, sort of accumulated knowledge. They come to class, and as you share this new content to them, it may not be new. It may be something that's similar to, it may be something that they've experienced before. So what you try to do is share it in such a way that, firstly, it's something that's new.
And not respecting my space.
Sorry, I think someone is saying something and I'm not hearing. Right, so sorry about that. So what you're trying to do is also allow learners to respond to the content that you're sharing and allow a variety of ways in which learners can engage or respond to this learning. And eventually that's how deep learning takes place in a normal, in a productive learning, teaching and learning environment. So the ideal situation is that you are able to support all your learners who are different in various forms and ways, and they come to you seeking for this knowledge, and how you share it with them is important. And I think in most cases, this information and how it's shared is what triggers how they may or may not respond to it. And I think in most cases, what fails in our teaching and in our teaching generally is that there's a staggered a very staggered way of sharing content. And learners almost know, if I go to Miss Tpec's classroom, it's going to be the same thing. She's going to ask me to open the textbook on page 52, and we're going to read and read and read. And then after that, she'll give us some form of assignment. And there's no way and there's no opportunity for learners to engage with the learning, one. Two, there's no variety. So a learner who isn't great in terms of reading then struggles to understand, meaning the response will also be limited. And so we don't get the best results from all our learners, because there's great limitations in how we deliver the content or the lessons that we share with our learners. So yeah, those are the three methods that, in fact, that are actually also captured within the DBE framework. And those are and that's the space that's meant to guide us on how we create these lessons, bearing in mind that, you know, there's all sorts of resources that are available in terms of tools and applications that will allow that space that we were talking, that D space that we were talking about earlier, where learners are responding positively, they're able to collaborate on an online space, even when the space is not online. Being able to use different pedagogical skills within your classroom setup actually gives an opportunity to a different learner to step in your class, learn something that's different in a different way, and the learner is then able to respond in a different way as well. So I think that the opportunities that technology has given us on one hand are immeasurable, because it allows us to be able to engage in that space and in that manner. So I'm going to pause right here and request that we speak about the three different methods and the framework that we've spoken about, share some thoughts and ideas on your experience. So I'm going to unshare my screen and share some story that I was sharing with my colleague a bit earlier about Benjamin. I used to be in a classroom, I think it was grade 8, with a guy called Benjamin. But we all knew that Benjamin had some form of mathematical brain. And the teacher also knew this, that Benjamin has got some skills when it comes to mathematics. And what used to happen is that the teacher would, on a board, write down a sum, and then she would guide us on the different steps on how to get to a certain solution to the mathematics problem. And what would happen is Benjamin would sit with a piece of paper on his desk, and he'd write the very same problem, but his steps would always be longer than the ones that the teacher is sharing. As a result, that opened an opportunity for Benjamin to come up front from time to time and solve the very same mathematics problem with the teacher. And what we found is that in the classroom, there were learners who could follow the maths teacher a way of resolving the maths problem. And there were learners who understood Benjamin's way of solving mathematics problems, even though Benjamin's way always had additional steps to follow. But there were learners who were able to understand mathematics better because of the method that she was using. And I need to say this because I was one of those learners who actually followed Benjamin's methods in most cases. And I was able to have some form of mathematical understanding in some instances because Benjamin was able to share. And that kind of environment created this space where we could trust each other with the teaching and learning process. And the teacher was actually more facilitating this learning and not necessarily standing in front and asking us to drill and practice timetables. So it was very practical, and it made mathematics more engaging for that year because the teacher was open to us all and collaborating and making sure that we understand the problems we had. So I'm going to pause there with that story and request some feedback. So if you've got some thinking around the different methods that we've just spoken about, this is our opportunity to share.
Afternoon, colleagues.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Yes, I have something to share with
Okay,
you.
lovely.
Based on the strategies or pedagogical strategies, I have a testimony on that. On my teaching and learning, especially there's this topic I like the most, and I usually project the information to learners. It's not much probability, and learners will find learners interested on the topic because I changed the method of teaching the topic and use the data projector and the sound to make them content and to focus. Really, it does work. It take a short time for them to understand. And remember the probability part. Sorry for those educators who are not familiar with the topic, but you'll find that we'll take less time to understand and focus more on the questions because you are projecting something and there are different types of questioning there, and you'll find learners participating, all learners excited. I agree with that, Peja. The strategies does play a role when you are teaching the variety, because our learners these days are very different and they do have a multiple intelligence, which we as educators, we need to cater those learners in one class. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nhlakanipho. I think that speaks exactly to what we've been talking about. The fact that you've got to consider the content knowledge, you've got to consider the pedagogical skills, and infuse a bit of technology to make the lesson more interesting. That's a beautiful example that you're sharing there. I don't know if there's anybody else. I'm seeing a raise of a hand from TS Oliphant Roads Secondary School. I hope I pronounced that right. You can unmute your mic.
Afternoon, colleagues.
Afternoon.
Yes, it's Olivenwood Bosch Secondary School. Cause I see, like, I think we have a bit of a challenge here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh yes, because I feel like we're driving away from the main content. Because I believe like we should be addressing like what kind of apps we can use to modify the learning and teaching in the classrooms, and how can we readjust our kids so that they can also be able to use those apps, because the different learning styles are, I believe most of us know that. So I don't know if you can maybe rearrange it to using the apps in the classroom situation that can help the learning and teaching to take place. And which apps can you recommend? Are there any free apps? Are there any apps that need to be subscription on? And how can we address such issues? Thank you.
All right. I think right at the beginning, I'm not sure if you joined later on in the session, but we did say that we would start off with some theoretical knowledge and then delve into using application in Teams. So we are moving slowly towards that direction, where we will introduce you to using Teams in your Microsoft Teams, rather using applications in your Microsoft Teams class.
Okay, I understand.
Thank you very much, sir. There's a request for JC Maluleka to please switch off your mic, or rather your video. We're seeing the entire kitchen unit and the cooking that's happening there. Thank you very much. I'm not sure if someone else wants to share a point before we move on. Hlengiwe has her hand up. You can unmute Hlengi.
I just want to respond to the previous speaker, Matsapelo. I'd like to ask a question to understand whether they understand why you started with that theoretical part. What's the purpose of understanding the framework? What is the purpose of understanding the models before you apply or before you select the digital tools that you want to use in the classroom? Because for me, that's it's an essential part of the session. We want to run away from the point where, as teachers, we use digital tools, you know, as a cherry on top on what we are doing, but we want to create that balance which Matapelo spoke about. That's I just need clarity on that, because it is I would say it does link with what you started with, but I want to know whether they understand why you started with that.
Right. I think right at the onset of the session, we did mention that it was important to lay a foundation and have a proper understanding as to what informs the conversation around finding the sweet spot or making sure that we integrate pedagogy, content knowledge, and the technology that's being requested. And this is why I had said perhaps UTS joined in the session late and didn't get that part of the training session. But I think what I need to say as well here is that we're not going to be sharing a wide range of tools, but we're going to guide you and show you how you use the tools in Microsoft Teams. And then from there, what we can do is at a later stage share a pack of resources for you to decide on which tools you want to work with, because I believe we've got a range of teachers here, so we wouldn't have enough time to delve in each and every subject. But what the demo session that we'll be having is guidance on how you add the applications or the tools and how you can potentially use them in class for teaching and learning. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back to the presentation so that we carry on and eventually reach the space where we are including the apps and tools. Right. So I think we've had a discussion, and I think we've had some testimony around, you know, seeing the Tpec in action and how it can change our class or our learner interaction. Ooh, my screen is frozen again. Right, there we go. So we're going to delve right into the application and the tools. But before we do that, we're just going to do a quick recap on what our class looks like. So you will see that at the right-hand side is where you log in the minute you ooh, sorry about that. On the right hand is where you log in. And right next to it, there's a bubble there that says this is where you add your teams and your channels. Right at the top is where you do your searches, and it's advisable to always use your @ when you're searching for a particular member. When you're looking to start a new chat, you will see that there's a pen and a piece of a notepad there for starting a new chat. And right there at the top is your taskbar. And within your taskbar, you will see that you've got multiple icons. And you've got your chat icon, your activity icon. Your activity icon actually speaks to all the directed notifications that come through to your team. You've also got your different teams showing right inside or rather on the right-hand side of the toolbar. What you also have is within your team, you are also able to create your channels. We must remember that at all times. And right there at the bottom is where you join or you create a team. In the middle of the screen, you've got your chat box. This is where you do all your chats. And right there at the bottom, I think Quinn in the previous demonstration shared how you use the little icons there for engagement and interaction. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to play a short video that briefly shares what or how we can use applications and tools in the Teams class or in our virtual classrooms. And then immediately after that, I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Quinn, who's going to share how to include applications in your Teams class. And in most cases, I think we refer the application and the tools as resources, because they work more like your filing or where you file the lessons or where you keep a particular bank of resources or your lesson. So they are more resources. We call them more resources than apps and tools. Yeah, so we're going to play the video now.
How to use apps in Microsoft Teams. Microsoft Teams for Education is your hub for all the work you do in class. This means you can work on files with other educators and students right here. First of all, you can find the Office 365 apps you already use right within Teams. This includes Word, Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote, Class Notebook, and Staff Notebook. There are a couple of different ways to use these apps in Teams. One is to open a document that has been shared in a conversation or chat, and then choose Edit in Teams. Another is to add a new or existing file as a tab in one of your teams. For example, this teacher wants to add a resource she created for her advanced English class. That way, her students can reference it anytime. To do this, navigate to the General channel, though any channel will work, and select the plus sign icon. Then, choose the app and select the right file. Rename the tab and save it. Now, this file can be accessed at any time by the students in class. You can return to a tab later on to edit or remove it. You'll notice that any team you've made for a class already includes a class notebook tab too. The options are endless when it comes to adding tabs within a team. These are just some ideas. Bookmark an important website for your class to reference. Or pin class documents, presentations, calendars, and announcements. Plus, there's more. Many of your favorite educational apps have already integrated with Microsoft Teams. This includes classroom faves like Flipgrid and Quizlet. Add an app to your channel from here, or if you don't see the one you want, select the ellipsis on your app bar and search for the app in the built-in store. This teacher wants to add the Quizlet app. As you install an app, you'll be able to customize your preferences. Like
Hi, Matapelo. I think the video
Teams.
sound, we keep losing the sound
Now you're all set.
of the
Quizlet
video.
is ready for you and your students to use. What's your favorite teaching app? Find it in Microsoft Teams and add it to one of your teams today.
Right, so that was the video. So Quinn, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to hand over to you for you to do a live demo of how your classroom looks with some apps and tools included. Thank you.
All right. Good afternoon, colleagues. So I will be taking you through on how to add applications in Microsoft Teams. So these are apps and tools within Microsoft Teams. I'll just share my screen now. Right. Can I get an indication of my screen?
Yes, is there?
Yeah, it's fine.
Can you see my screen? Thank you so much.
Yes.
Okay, so welcome to my
Yes,
classroom. My classroom name is Telkom Extended Program. So this is my classroom, and in my classroom, I'd like to integrate a couple of YouTube videos, Flipgrid, a website, basically any application within Microsoft Teams. So to do that, but before we do that, just a quick recap of what we did last week. So last week we showed you navigation of, in our last session, we showed you the navigation of Teams, which our bar tab, as well as how to join or create a team when you click on join or create a team. And what happens is that you have a team which is highlighted with initials and a box with a color, and you have your channels below your team. So now this is my team right now, and we currently are having a session, as you could see. So how do you add applications? So the first application we will look into is a Wiki application. So Wiki is a tool where you can collaborate with your students. For example, if you want to have a class discussion about a topic in history, you could do a wiki collaboration. So what happens is you go to your plus sign on your channel. So we are on our general channel, and I click on a plus sign to add a tab. All right. And then these are the applications that are currently, well, my recent applications. And as they said on the video, if there's any application that you want, you could search for it on the search term. So we will be looking at Wiki. So we'll click on Wiki, and you can name your Wiki. So you could say this is your, I don't know, history topics. History introduction. History introduction, and then you save. So once you save, it will automatically announce in our notice board that you have inserted a Wiki collaboration space where we can collaborate and talk about all about history and anything within history, depending on what you'd like to introduce in your history. So your page name could be, okay, I don't know anything about history. I don't know why I chose history. You could just say history again. Let's just say history. And then from here, you could write your section. So what would you want your students to talk about? Who was Nelson Mandela? Sorry, I'm just gonna make a very common example. And then where your content is that's where your students will collaborate and talk about who was Nelson Mandela. You can add another section here, anything like what is Nelson Mandela's history. Students will collaborate here. So whenever a student collaborate or say something, there's a conversation tab that shows where you'll be able to see. Unfortunately, right now I'm the only one who commented, but if any of my colleagues were to comment, you'll be able to see that Matapelo commented that COVID-19 is an infectious disease. Pindi will be able to comment as well, and so forth. So even if you were to tell students that when they write their comment, they should include their name on the side, if another student was to cancel that, you will still know who actually wrote that content, and therefore it shall not be stolen. So this is how you can incorporate a collaboration space within Microsoft Teams where you could discuss with your students to introduce a topic. Right, so what if you want to introduce a topic with a video instead? A YouTube video that you found that you find interesting, as an introduction. So what you do is you go back to tabs again, and then you go to YouTube. And then on YouTube, you will then search or paste a link. So you either search for a video that you want, or you paste a link of the video that you found when you were preparing for your lesson. So we will just do Nelson Mandela history, and then we search, and then you choose a video that is most relevant or the one that you find more interesting for your students, and then you select it, and then you save. Always have this box clicked so that you can post it could post their announcement in your notification, so that students know that Sir or ma'am has added a video, a YouTube video, and we need to watch it. So you click on save. All right, and then that is the life of Nelson Mandela animation, and this is where on your posts, I'm just gonna go back a bit, you can do a reply and say, watch this video as an introduction to our next session. Just say that. Right, so students will know that they need to watch this video as an introduction to our next session. You could still let them know that we will have questions on this video, so you need to really do watch it. And then let's say you found material on a website and you'd like to incorporate the material on the website on your teams. So these could be literally any website about Nelson Mandela's history, or about anything basically. So what you do is the same process again. You click on add a tab, and your applications will appear, and then you look for website. There we go. And then you select websites. From there, you will name the website. Okay, let me quickly look for a website. Let me just go for this one. All right, so you look for a website and we'll say Flipgrid. And then you paste the link of the website here. And then you still make sure that the post to the channel is selected, so that there is an announcement in our notice board that there is a website that has been added. And then you save. Right. So once it's saved, the website about Flipgrid will appear. So now my next applications that I will show is actually Flipgrid. So Flipgrid is a video discussion application within Microsoft Teams. I find it great in terms of introduction to topics, or rather if you want students to actually take a video of themselves explaining an aspect or a topic within a specific subject. So I will just stop sharing my screen and share again, because I'll be sharing how to work on Flipgrid. So I'll stop sharing and then I'll share again. Right. So welcome to my Flipgrid. So as I said, Flipgrid is a video discussion platform where students are able to, you are able to create a group. This can be a life science group, a history group, or anything basically that you'd like to discuss with your students. And then from there, you could go into let me just demonstrate it. So firstly, how do you get into Flipgrid? So you go to flipgrid.com, so which is Flipgrid Empower Every Voice, and then you click on Flipgrid, and then you have an option to sign up if you don't have an account yet, or you could log in. So when you sign up, amazingly, you can sign up with Google and you can also sign up with Microsoft. Okay, because I'm already signed in, it will do that. I'll just go back and I'll log out just to demo. Right. So you could log in or sign up with Microsoft or Google, and then I'll just log in since I have an account. So you could sign up anytime that you feel like it. So I'll sign up with my Microsoft details. Right. Okay, no, I don't want it to ask me a couple of times. And then we in our Flipgrid space. Slowly loading. Right. So in Flipgrid, you can create your classes as well. Where in these classes, this is where you will discuss with your students. Just to show you an example. So I've created a topic called WOW. We had another session with a group called WOW. And when you select on WOW, there is a topic called COVID-19 impact. So in COVID-19 impact, there is one response. So this is a response from a student. So when you select on the responses and you scroll down, you could see that there is a video from Quinterest with 12 views. It has 12 views because I've shared the code to this video. So when you select the video, please don't mind my chubby face. I'm just gonna play the response just to show how it looks. Okay, why is it not playing? Okay, it looks like it doesn't want to play because it's me, which doesn't make sense. Let's see. Right. So when you ask your students to... So my name is Pinterest Safana and I'm in grade. So that is how students will look when... Sorry about that. Load shedding has kicked in my area. My apologies. I had to quickly connect to my second option of internet just in case. Should I continue, Matapelo? Is it fine?
Yes, please do, Quinn.
Thank you. Right. So how do you create your own Flipgrid classroom where you could give feedback to your students and record them, tell them about their performance, and also give them a private comment? So what you do is you go to your discussions. So this is your home page, and you create a group. So in your group, you create your group name. You could either make it public or private. So for public, because it's your students, it will be fine. You just share the code with them. So your group name would be Life Sciences. And then you have a join code. So this is a code they will use to join your Flipgrid to give you answers to the questions that you have asked them if you want to integrate a video into your lessons or into your discussions. And then to add students, you can add a student using a student email. This can be Microsoft, or you can just use a student username, and then you go to next. And then from there, you can add your students if you'd like to, or you could just go next. Right, looks like Flipgrid has actually changed. So let's just go back. So you go to create group. You actually use your public, and then you go Life Sciences. Apologies about that. And then, as I said, this is your Flipgrid code to share with your students. You click on next. And then you could select duplicate topics if you want, or you could skip for now. And then this is your group code, like I said, for students to join. You could share it on Microsoft Teams, or you could share it on Google Classroom or wherever you want. So we will share with Microsoft Teams. Okay, my network is a bit bad due to load shedding. Please do forgive me if I am breaking in the middle of the session or you can't hear me. I'm hoping somewhere along the line it will go well. So, okay, let me just quickly go back. So you could share with your Microsoft Teams and you go to your Teams. So you will go to Microsoft Teams. I'll have to stop sharing again and share once more. Apologies for doing that. It's just that there's multiple tabs. And then you go back to your classroom. And where you add Microsoft, Flipgrid, is you go to your tab again. You click on the tab. You go to Flipgrid. You add Flipgrid. It's a bit slow. Apologies for that. And then you enter your Flipgrid URL, which you have copied. So your students will know that for them to join your group, they'll have to use the Flipgrid code, and then you save. So this is where you will inform your students that hey, for if you have orals and they're home, you can just let them know that go to your Flipgrid and read a page in English storybook, and then I will give you a response. So that is how Flipgrid works. And then my last applications that I will show you is Planner. So Planner is more like a calendar. So it helps you on to plan your task with your students, if you have any task for your students, so that they're able to see their due dates for assignments and so forth. So like I said, the same procedure applies. You go to your plus sign, which is adding a tab, and then you click on planner.
About my phone supporters for not commenting after a loss. Well, he did that, so then he's getting my base support. I don't know.
Right. My network is a bit slow. Do forgive me. I'll just blame it on ESCOM. Right. So from there, you give your planner a name. So this could be assignment.
Quinn, sorry to disturb a bit. Can you stop sharing and share again, because your current screen is showing the Flipgrid still.
Okay. Right. Let me go back. Stop sharing. Okay, and then I'll share again. Right. Can you see my teams?
We can see your teams. Yes, we can see the teams. So let's try adding again.
All right. So you go to your Edit tab. You go to Planner. And then from there, it will load. And then you give your planner a name, a new plan. So a planner would be your assignment. So which assignments are due, assignment, or you could give it a more specific name, life science assignment, and then you save it. All right, it's loading. And it's loading. Right. And then in your planner, you can then add a task. So you have a to-do where you can add a task. So in this task, you will say your, what do they call these life science assignments that are due? The one that has 25 marks. So you'll just say assignment, and then you set a due date. Okay, this is long. Okay, you set your due date, and if this specific assignment is for like a specific student who hasn't submitted anything, you could just assign to them, or you can assign to your whole class so they could see. So I'll assign to Hlengiwe, I'll assign to Matapelo, Pindile. Obviously, this will be more of a task if you have a larger group of students, and then you add a task. So they will know that they have an assignment that is due on the 2nd of October. And once that is done, you could mark it as complete. So this is just to add your task, and you can also check your schedule on organizing what's due, what's not due. So basically keeping track of your task, your assignments, and anything that is basically due. Right. So that are the apps that I am demonstrating for today. I would like you to explore and just play around with any other application. I would have loved to demonstrate OneNote. However, my OneNote has been acting up, and I believe OneNote is an amazing application that you can work around, especially if you are a maths person. It has a maths assistant which can do wonders in terms of working out solutions and so forth. And that will be it from my side. If you have any questions, or if you'd like me to